Great pleasure that, one, we got to ring the bell, the closing bell this afternoon at the Stock Exchange, but that I also get to introduce you all to our host and keynote speaker tonight, Duncan Niederauer, the CEO of NYSE Euronext. This is not the first time that I've got to introduce Duncan, as Duncan has been an active supporter of the Women's Bond Club, hosting our diversity roundtable at the lovely boardroom that they have, as well as other content events. Duncan's commitment to diversity initiatives go far beyond the Women's Bond Club. They include WF360, Catalyst, the YWCA, Fortune's Most Powerful Women, and most recently, he's on the Advisory Council for Moving the Needle. As one of the most respected global organizations, NYSE Euronext has the ability to share best practices with its member firms and recently celebrated International Women's Day in every market, and on July 18th will host Moving the Needle's Building Effective Boards with Qualified Diverse Candidates. That event will bring together CEOs, board chairmen, board candidates, pro-diversity leaders, an event which we all hope will influence the diversity of public company boards for years to come. Duncan also recently announced the NYSE Big Startup, a collaborative nationwide jobs growth initiative designed to connect young companies and entrepreneurs with corporate America. And we all know that a lot of the jobs growth in this country comes from small companies. As part of this initiative, a microfinance program called ASEAN NYSE Job Growth Fund was started with a $1.5 million commitment by NYSE Euronext. Duncan's support of leadership and diversity does not stop with external commitments. It is also evident in the leadership of the exchange. Many of you might have read the article in today's Wall Street Journal that talked about the fact that in order to have more female CEOs, we have to have a pipeline of women in senior positions. Duncan is certainly doing his part at the NYSE to truly support women in high places. The NYSE currently has women as the global heads of ETFs, strategy, marketing, sales, litigation, legal, M&A, intellectual property, corporate secretary, risk and compliance. And, of course, Lisa Dalmar, our former WBC co-president, who is also the COO of European cash markets for NYSE Euronext. Lisa fortunately could not be with us tonight because she recently gave birth to twins. So we miss her and we congratulate her. Duncan also serves on the boards of Archipelago Holdings, Colgate University, Operation Hope, the American Island Fund, the Congressional Medal of Honor Foundation, and he also co-chairs the Newmark School's Destination of Promise campaign for children with autism and related disabilities. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming tonight's host and keynote speaker, Duncan.
Guys, I'm not going to let her leave yet because I want to tell you, Fran was so excited about ringing the closing bell today that she still has her name tag on from 4 o'clock today. So most of us have these white name tags. You keep that one. It's good branding right there.
I will.
Okay?
Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Thank you. I have a small challenge on my hands because Fran also gave half of my remarks. So. But that was good. So first of all, thank you, Fran and Mary, for your leadership. Thank you to Andrea and Diane for this is a magnificent gathering, and congratulations to Carla and Kay. So let's do that first. Thank you. It is a pleasure for us to support this great event. I'm delighted to be the chair of the event. And it really celebrates not only the rising stars, but just the fantastic women that we have in our entire industry, and as Fran referenced, at our company. And I'll get to them in a minute. But I think what we're really here for tonight is to congratulate the 34 rising stars, including our own Reagan Anderson, so please put your hands together for them too. Thank you. Now, there will be a contest later as to which of the 34 gets the largest round of applause from the audience, so keep that in mind. Safe, keep your powder dry. Now, as Fran was alluding to, our relationship with the WBC did not start tonight. I was very pleased that Fran mentioned Lisa Dahmer, who is not only a critically important leader in our company, but I think is exemplifying what work-life balance is all about. I got a lovely email from Lisa over the weekend saying that the WBC has always had a close place in her heart. She has a real fondness for what this organization has done and will do. And you all know she would have been here were it not for the fact that she is home with God's greatest gift, two twins. So please keep her in your thoughts. We also have our own Karen Lorenz here today, who, do you still have your NYSE badge on too, it looks like? You do, look at that. You're starting a trend here. Karen, as many of you know, is the co-chair for the WBC of all the corporate outreach and a big reason why we're here tonight. But our history with the WBC probably goes back further than you would think for me personally. So I was talking to a few of you upstairs, and I hear from my mom on almost a daily basis. She is 88, still actively engaged on email. And she keeps track of me by seeing whether I do the opening or closing bell. And then she knows, that's how she knows whether I'm in New York or not. I do call her, I do keep in touch with her, just to be clear, she doesn't have to wonder where I am. But so she said, I saw the bell today, it was nice to know you were in New York. It's about time that you had mostly women up on the podium instead of what you usually have up there. So then I told her, that's right, I think that's right. And I said to her, well, you know, it's for the Women's Bond Club. I'm having the privilege of speaking at an event tonight. And she goes, the Women's Bond Club? She goes, you mean the Women's Bond Club? And I said, I guess. Maybe there's more than one, Ma, but I don't know. And she said, well, I was a member of the Women's Municipal Bond Club in the 40s when I worked on Wall Street. So I don't know if that's a precursor to what the Women's Bond Club became, but she thinks it is, and that's her story, and we're sticking with it. And she said at that time, no CEO of the NYSE ever came to speak to us. So she said, so you better do a good job. So you guys can tell me later whether I lived up to what she wanted me to say. And obviously, more recently, as Fran mentioned, we rang the closing bell. You probably saw the video running. Carla and Kay did a perfect job. They executed it marvelously, so that was excellent. Now, I also think our two organizations fit together just very naturally and very nicely. Like a lot of great companies, we believe that promoting diversity is not only the right thing to do, but it's also good for business. We also believe that it's purposeful that many of our talented executives are women, and we've mentioned Lisa, Karen, and Reagan already tonight. And the thing that I am most proud of in terms of leaving it better than I found it in terms of the NYSE that I inherited with my team is Fran rattled off all those names and positions. We are particularly proud, because I think that's where it has to start, that the next generation of leadership of our company is going to predominantly be women, because we have seeded it that way, and these women are all in. There's a lot more rising stars than just Reagan. We have many, many women poised to be the leaders of the company in the next generation and generations beyond. So that's something I'm really proud of. So I think we're really living what the WBC is all about. But I also think the history of which goes back to 1921 for this organization, if I understand it correctly, goes back to the 18th century for our company. Our company goes back basically to the founding of the country. Now, we all know that Wall Street and financial services broadly has for too long been really a male-dominated industry. But I think there have been some pioneers out there, and we went pretty far back into our history to see what we could find. And it reminds us, I think, of how far we've come. It was in 1870 that two women named Victoria Woodhull and Tennessee Claflin created their own brokerage firm just a stone's throw from here. And of course, the tabloids and the journalists, instead of giving them credit for being pioneers, described them as the bewitching brokers, right? I think that's code for they kicked all the guys' asses, but I'm not really sure. Now, in World War II, the NYSE, which I would be the first to admit in our storied history, not exactly a bastion of diversity. The floor was very much male-dominated. When World War II came around, that was when a lot of women came from off-floor jobs, and actually the floor was predominantly staffed by women during World War II. And then after the war ended, the men came back, and the women who had served the exchange for those few years migrated back to off-floor jobs. And then Mickey Siebert, who I'm sure many of you know, Muriel, she really broke the barrier in the 60s as the first woman member. And Doreen Mogavero, who I work very closely with now, runs a company called Mogavero & Lee, which was the first firm on the floor established in the early 90s that was run and managed solely by women. And I think these are the success stories. But there's one important woman that you might not think about, no matter how many times you walk by the exchange or how long you've studied the history of the exchange and financial services. If you look closely at the statuary on top of the facade of the NYSE, pause there for a minute the next time you walk by, because you will find the central figure of that statuary is a woman who stands for integrity. So I thought that was particularly telling, especially what we've lived through as an industry the last 5 years. Probably a good time to pause there, not just once, but maybe every day, and think about what she stands for. Because at the end of the day, integrity is the root of what we all do. In our mind, one of the slogans we've come up with is there is no capitalism without character. And I think every time we go through a crisis, it reminds us that we might have lost our compass a bit on that. So it's about more than just embracing diversity if we're talking about integrity. It's about doing well by doing good. And Fran alluded to some of our corporate and social responsibility initiatives. That Main Street initiative, the big startup, is something that we genuinely believe can change the lives of small businesses on Main Street. This is not a self-interested initiative. This is not about people running businesses who we hope go public in our exchange someday. This is about 5 and 10 employee companies who we think we can make 10 or 20 employee companies and give them a chance to grow if they have the right mentorship and access to expertise and to capital through the microfinance networks. But it also manifests itself in the jobs bill that we were instrumental in creating, and in fact our own Reagan Anderson was really the author of that bill in large part, working with a lot of staffers on the Hill. And we felt that was critically important, because a lot of people sit there and would say, well, what goes on in Washington, who cares? We fundamentally disagree. We thought that if it was about jobs and we could get a jobs bill authored that made a lot of sense and gave access to the capital markets to small companies and helped them manage through the process of what right now, unfortunately, is a very difficult process, we thought that could make a real difference and really help grow the economy. And selfishly, we wanted to try to work on something where we could be part of the answer instead of part of the problem. Yeah, thank you. It actually deserves a bigger round of applause than that, but I know you guys are saving it for the rising stars, so I'll let you off the hook. Now, so what we were really proud of is that you could get Congress to actually put down their weapons for a little while and agree on something, right? And it makes a real difference. And it goes back to something we identify at our own company, which I think is so important about what the WBC is trying to achieve also. And I mentioned this to a few young ladies from Bank of America Merrill Lynch, so I hope I got the name right. We'll talk later about what it's like to, we'll talk about Topco names in another speech another time. So what we were talking about upstairs is, it's interesting to identify the problems, but it's kind of irrelevant, right? Any one of us can be in the problem identification business. What the big startup and what the jobs bill were all about, and what I think the work of the WBC is all about, is let's get beyond identifying the problems. Let's be part of the solution. And I think what really emphasizes that you want to be part of the solution is what you're asking the rising stars tonight to live up to. If you're going to lead, you're going to learn, and more importantly, you're going to return, which means you're going to pay it forward. then that's being part of the answer. That's getting out of the problem identification business and into the solutions business. So, as the father of 2 daughters, thank you guys for leading from the front. I'll do my part to do the best we can to lead this wonderful icon I'm privileged to run every day, and we'll do our best to lead from the front. Thank you for helping us see the way. Good night.